After many windings through thickets and swamps, passing on our way several Indian burying grounds, we came at last to the banks of Lewis River, which had been swelled by the rains to an alarming volume. After hallooing for some time, 2 men came over in a yawl and told us we would have to wait some days for the river to fall, as it would be impossible to cross our oxen over, the river really dashing by like a mill race. I was very anxious for a trial, but he refused to risk it. Being determined to proceed, I asked what he would charge to tie a rope to the horns of our leading ox, and going over in the yawl, just row as I ordered. $1.50, he said. I took the weakest ox, fastened the rope, and started off. When they had advanced a few feet from shore, I drove the others in. The men kept calling out and warning me that the cattle would drown, and to desist, but our animals had become strong from their rest at Vancouver and were willing. The men kept rowing upstream, and finally all landed safely on the other shore. I had taken the precaution to leave an extra rope that, in case any one of them gave out, we could assist them, but there was no occasion. All came safely over. The ferryman, during the operation, was white as a sheet, fearing we should lose them. Said never since he had kept the ferry had any cattle crossed at such a stage of water. He offered us $150 a pair for them, but I would not have sold them at any price, for they constituted all our worldly wealth. We remained with these men all night, and learned from them that there were 4 or 5 men ahead about a mile, who had come to a halt, finding it impossible to proceed further, and they assured us we would be compelled also to wait there till spring. Some ominous twitchings in my ankle almost persuaded me to remain, but I was anxious to fulfill my part of the contract with Wilson and not disappoint him, and therefore pushed on up the Cowlitz trail. We soon came to the party, and ascertained from one of them that he had been ahead 2 miles to reconnoiter, and found it so exceedingly swampy that it was impossible to proceed. We plodded on doggedly, and when we came to the place spoken of, found he had not exaggerated its difficulties. The trail that we were following was so faint that had we not found the swamp, we should have concluded we were on the wrong road. Through it we went, hardly knowing whether we were right or wrong, for there was no way of telling, pushing on keenly to keep the cattle from miring, which threatened to occur every now and then. Several times my boots were pulled off, and I had great difficulty in recovering them again. We had intended making 10 miles at least, as we started at daybreak, but after splurging in and around that swamp all day, when, after dark, we reached a house, we found we had only made 6 miles. The good people of the house were astonished as well as overjoyed to see us, as they had not expected to see the face of living man again till spring. Next day we varied the performance by the absurd movement of going 5 or 6 miles on our course, and, concluding we had gone wrong, retracing our steps, only to be assured we had been right. Pressed on till we came to Pretty Girl River, so named by some amorous and susceptible trapper, who swore he saw an angel standing on the bank, dressed in white. Finding a canoe here, we crossed over, encountered another stretch of low swampy prairie, and after a long 2 hours' walking, came to a deep slough which we had to wade. It was icy cold and deep enough almost to require swimming at times, when the undercurrent nearly swept us off our feet. After we crossed, we had to drive full 5 miles more. We came then to another slough, and hearing the deep gutturals of Indians on the other side, hailed them to come with a canoe to take us over, the cattle waiting. We went a mile further and came to a house occupied by a Kentuckian who was half drunk, very verbose, and excessively polite. Next morning, we started across the Cowlitz to get breakfast. There were 2 or 3 Indians on the creek, and one of them we got to row us over. These Indians build much more permanently than any I have yet seen. They pick up slabs in the river, and setting them up on end, about 5 feet high, run girders across, and upon them erect rafters, just as we do, shingling with bark, which they cut from the cedar trees. The roof is open in the center, and in the middle of the floor they build a fire, around which they all squat, while the smoke eddying up through the rafters answers the double purpose of curing the salmon hanging there and warming the house. A number of families will live in one lodge, and a dozen fires be lighted, each surrounded by its own circle. They manufacture of rushes a soft kind of mat, which they use to lie upon, and also to hang up on the sides of their lodges to keep off the wind. They do all the boating on the river, no inconsiderable amount. In the flourishing town of Monticello, consisting of 4 houses, we ate our breakfast and listened to the oft-repeated tale of the horrible prospect we had ahead of us.